Say what's up, Viwe once again, the brother from the ancient mother. Welcome to another Headspace album review. Very few people know the South African entertainment industry like the man whose album I'm about to review. Maraza is a trailblazing entertainer with so many hats, it's dizzyingly admirable. The man has been in the entertainment space as a presenter, as an actor, just a basic, jovial, slim-cut character of the South African vibrant scene. Filled with a lot of humor, sharp intellect, and a kind of wizardry of sorts seen through his calcified sense of just being free with himself. Maraza is yet another one of those examples of being actively creative and proud of who you are in the quote-unquote post-apartheid South Africa. He has been active in rap for quite a season. The man is known, he travels in circles, he's been rapping since the days Cash Time was literally a group and not actually a whole freaking collective. So I'm here to say that this man has earned his stripes beyond Adidas, you know what I mean? He is really somebody who could be considered a seasoned vet, and yet even in that kind of pedigree, musically he hasn't yet had a body of work that could actually garner him that kind of acclaim. South Africa is a place where a lot of your street credibility has to trickle into some sort of commercial plane for you to be considered an icon. Is that fair? Hell no. Is that how the rules are played? Hell yes. And someone like Maraza only really glimmered into the spotlight with the famed single Lukwan. I know you all remember that. Again, what makes Maraza so characteristically genius, and I use that word very deliberately because I do think he's a genius and I'm about to lay it out, is that he's one of those few rappers who could really be profound and funny and technically marvelous all in one breath. He's conversational. He is not so lyrical that he's detached from a bigger audience, and he's not so simple that he's watered down to the point of being somewhat dim in his approach to writing. And yet again, he gives us another offering. Lost and Found. The title makes me think a lot. I don't know what he means by it, but here's what it feels like. It feels like Maraza sees himself as an artifact that has made its way into the industry, but nobody is yet to claim it. You know how you go to your lost and found items and you look for that thing you lost because it's so valuable to you and you really want to see if it's in the midst of all these other things? It feels like Maraza is saying to us that he's that element. He's that element that's missing from the game that we might eerily feel we need, but we're still moving through the stash. And I still feel like if the album is lost and found, after this listen, he's still kind of lost. I'm gonna break it down for you. This album is sonically an extension of that same trap feel. Maraza has been playing around with this sound for a while, and he is somebody who understands the archetypes of umculo wasemzansi. He knows how to kind of go into places that people are familiar with, especially Elokshin. He is undeniably aiming to become the Kasi rapper lyricist extraordinaire of this era, and he does it blatantly well. However, I finally found what I think is his kind of drawback. The production in itself is not mesmerizing. It's what you'll hear from any other rapper who wants to fit into that context. I want a South African Kasi audience who are into the trap, to the piano, to the gqom. It's that typical what we call Mzansi flavor. I hate the term, but here's what it marinates into. It feels cold in many places, and I mean cold in the sense that a lot of the synths are deep. The album is carried by this very kind of 2013 basic 808 trap sound that is carried on with a little bit of South African elements here and there in the drum programming. And Maraza is such a goddamn freaking good lyricist. It's punchlines galore. And this album sounds like a fun, drunk weekend with that friend who talks too much. Maraza's kind of over raps for me on this one, because in a lot of the tracks he made me realize why trap is trap, and why a lot of rappers kind of struggle to find a balance between making music that's entertaining to a dance market and still being able to thread some lyrical prowess into it. There's a lot. This album is wordy as fuck, and I mean, he says a lot, he crams a lot, and I feel like in a lot of instances he could have really minimalized his rapping style on this, because listening to this I didn't know whether to pay attention to the bars or to kind of groove along with the song. So in this analogy that I made, you know when you're having fun and that dude just keeps talking and you can't fully appreciate him because you're having a good time, but you know he's probably saying some deep shit. Maraza gets lost in this wormhole where his valuable lyrical skill is lost in a format or in a context that can't fully embrace it. Trap music is best done with minimal attention to lyricism. That's why it's famously called mumble rap. Most trapsters aim for more melodic approach than lyrical approach. And if you're trying to be lyrical through trap, the best way to do it is to kind of say less. And this is not something Maraza does. He says a lot, and I feel like he's a man who wants to say a lot. He's got a lot to prove. He's got a lot to say. He's got a lot of wisdom, knowledge, freaking frustration that he wants to belt out through his music. And had we not been trapped in a kind of assembly point where music is done for the purposes of commercial consumption, I would have valued what this album is. It's an experimentation in being free to be lyrical in the context of trap. However, I feel like if you want to pop this album, you'll be very confused as to where to play it. If you want to have a good time, it's just he says too much for the songs to really sink in a place where you could fully appreciate them as dance songs. But also, if you just want to listen to the bars, the trap beats in and of themselves kind of overwhelm his ability to convey himself lyrically. The mastering is on point. I just really feel like what this album is a lesson in the fact that rap has pockets for a reason. And I think Maraza wants to do a sound where he undoubtedly always brings the lyrical credibility to the forefront, and maybe this is a challenge to him to kind of bring it back to something a little bit more simplistic. I think Guan was a great example of how you could do that. He had a lot of punchlines and bars in that song. However, it was repetitive and minimalistic enough for the rest of South Africa to move and dance along with. And I feel like along the way, he's kind of abandoned that formula and really gone into an attention where he has a point to prove of being one of the best lyricists that South Africa has to offer. So really, this album feels schizophrenic as fuck. It's trying to be commercially appealing on this angle, and yet it's also trying to be fundamentally hip-hop purist in its lyricist approach. And it kind of shreds itself up in pursuit of both things, because it doesn't thread that fine line of being simplistic enough for the general mass and yet witty and sharp enough for the lyrical pundits. So all in all, this for me is a 6 out of 10. Way better than average, but somehow stuck in a place where do you play this music? How do you learn to appreciate it? And I think that's also the question that we have to ask ourselves about a lot of the rappers we listen to. We need to know where rappers are trying to go with their artistic direction. And if Maraza's gonna correct me, I really feel like he's a guy who wants that two-headed monster of being lyrical dominating but commercially dominating as well. And I think if there's anything we've learned from really commercial viable lyricists such as AKA, it's that the simplicity matters, the minimalism matters. Maraza has given us trap complexity, and I don't think you can do trap complex in a complex way. I think trap is a reinvention of minimalistic African contemporary art. That's what it is. So ultimately, this album is colored by really good features from some of Eastern Cape's powerhouse heavyweights. We've got M2K doing something a little out of the ordinary. He's known as being a bar for bar lyricist, but here he kind of does what I think you would expect from Maraza. Simplifies it, becomes the trapper instead of the rapper. Viwe Jika comes through with that same kind of jovial energy and spirit, and I think it's a question to ask out there. Is it possible to be a complex lyricist on top of a trap beat? I say no. I say this is why this album doesn't make it across the 78 mark. Had he kind of looked at his approach, I really would have felt like it would have pushed that far. But fundamentally, I do want to say something about the importance of Maraza as an artist. He's yet another example of the underappreciation that we have for lyricists. Where do they go? Where do South Africa's lyricists in the hip-hop space go to be appreciated in a market that is increasingly, seemingly only paying attention to Abanabas Javi side? There's an ongoing discussion. I really want you all to have it with me. Talk to me in the comments section. Talk to me if you think Maraza's album makes sense cohesively as a trap listener and as somebody who appreciates lyricism, because just like I reiterated, for me it kind of proves the point that those two worlds can only coexist in a certain kind of format, minimalism. So it's been another Headspace review. Appreciate the music. Shout out to Maraza for always giving us something authentic. He definitely wins my capital A. He's been an artist who, and not because he splashes around with vernac, but because he is himself. Gravel voiced, funny, hilarious, filled with so many interesting ideas and punchlines that you just can't help but look, listen to, and admire. So shout out to the artistry and the level of lyricism that he's always raising. This has been Viwe Jika signing out.